Up the page here. Hold on. Okay. So we are holding law number 7 in the first chapter of the laws of Shabbos in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Okay, so the end of this chapter gets a little difficult, but we'll get there, Mirza Hashem. Okay, so it says like this: Yachin basar v'dagim yafim. One should prepare for Shabbos meat and fish, good quality, umatamim and good umatamim v'yayim meshubach, good tasting food and wines. Kafi yachal, to each person according to what they could afford. Ki mitzvah, why do we prepare this for Shabbos? Still talking about Shabbos food. Ki mitzvah la'echal b'chol suda misuda Shabbos dagim. The mitzvah is to eat in every meal of Shabbos fish. If it's not dangerous for the person, it's unhealthy for that person. Obviously, if you have a diet issue that you cannot eat fish, then you're not forced to eat fish if it's damaging to you. He says, but if it is damaging or really not something you like, a raven is not tasteful for you, you don't have to eat them. Shabbos is here for the pleasure of Shabbos. You're supposed to enjoy Shabbos, not for any kind of pain, chas v'shalom. And therefore, if it's not pleasant for you to eat fish, really unpleasant for you, then you don't have to. But it is a mitzvah, if you can, to eat fish. Now, he starts off, the Kitzur starts off saying that you should have meat, fish, and matamim with good tasting and wine. But when he talks about the commandment itself, he talks specifically, hey Aaron, he talks specifically about the fish, the mitzvah on the fish specifically. The yashchiz as a sakin, and it's also it's a mitzvah. Those who live in Yerushalayim know there's people that you could go to that sharpen your knives for you. So you should sharpen your knife before Shabbos. It's also part of the mitzvah. Shezeu gam we cover the Shabbos. That's also a way of respecting the Shabbos. V'taken is a bias, and you should make your house in order. So also in a way as preparing the house for Shabbos. Be'atzia samitois. We'll see in a second. You should set up the beds. Those days he's talking about the beds of eating. They would recline in beds. That was the way people ate on their own little private tables. But also, of course, you should set your sleeping beds as well. We'll see in a second the commentaries on this, but in general, you should have tablecloth on the table. The tablecloth should be on the table all of Shabbos. You shouldn't take off the tablecloth and leave. Some people, when you eat, you have the tablecloth. When you finish eating during the week, you possibly take off the tablecloth, but not on Shabbos. That's its own statement. You should be very happy as Shabbos comes in. But don't go into Shabbos. This is an important commandment. It's not just a statement. You should be happy going into Shabbos. Part of the stress, especially in the winter, of Shabbos coming in, early, and now Hanukkah tomorrow is going to be even more complicated because you have to light the candles and there's Hanukkah and Shabbos. So v'yismach b'viyas Shabbos. Go into Shabbos joyfully, happily. V'yachshav v'daita, and one should think, ilu hayi mitzapish yavei ilav eiza adam yakar v'chashav. How would you behave? What would you be anticipation if you were waiting with excitement for someone very important to come visit you? How would you prepare the house for that person? If the most important person in the public, let's say, came to your house, a famous person, the King David was going to come visit you in the house, right? How would you prepare your house? You wouldn't just say, you'd prepare the house nicely. The whole house would be ready for that guest. Mikosh came even more so. How would you greet? How you should greet the queen of Shabbos, the queen of Shabbos. B'mikzes mekaymes, he says in certain places, oisim pashtida oimal mulaisa the Sudas Shabbos. They make a kind of pie on Shabbos, zeichel aman, as a remembrance of the man, the food that we ate in the desert, which was kind of set positioned that it was between the dew. The dew would fall. The Torah tells us the dew would fall and the man would fall on top of it. So like that, a pie which has in it the dough on the top and the dough on the bottom and the meat inside. So one of the dishes that's customary to make is a kind of a kugel, kind of a meat kugel. Which was like in a box. There was the dew on the bottom and the dew on the top to keep the man fresh. Now he quotes from the Arizal. I'm going to go through the footnotes on the English in a second. That it's customary to taste from the foods of Shabbos on Erev Shabbos, on Friday, meaning Friday before Shabbos. Not that you have to sit down and eat a full meal, but to have a small piece of chicken and maybe a little coleslaw and a little kugel. It's part of the mitzvah of getting ready for Shabbos. So tafshil shenaseh Shabbos, the foods that you're eating for Shabbos. Now, the Rebbe always would talk about that we're now in time of history where Erev Shabbos after Chatzos. It means the world is a 6,000 period, 5,784 means we're ready Friday after Chatzos. So we're supposed to taste in the taste of Mashiach. So that's why we learned Chassidus, and that's why we're holding in a spiritual Erev Shabbos now. So we're supposed to start tasting the foods of Mashiach. Okay, now I'm going to go through the footnotes on this halacha. Preparing the knives, he quotes the Beis Yosef and the Ramah both say, again, this is not something you would find maybe in America, but in Israel and Israel, you have people that travel that they show up on the Friday with their equipment to sharpen your knives. Okay, so he says over here, when he says that you should prepare your beds for Shabbos, he means the couches that you sit on. The couches were the chairs that they would sit on to eat. But it is good to make the bed you sleep in as well. The Mishnah Berurah says that even though today we sit on chairs, a person also should prepare their bed for Shabbos, even though even though if you're going to go to sleep soon in it, but nevertheless, you go into your house, Shabbos, you should go into the house, should be in order. Okay, then he quotes about putting on a tablecloth. He says you should cover all tables in the room. This is a lot of people have this custom. Means that's you have today in dining sets, people have different tables or countertops. So the custom is like if you have even a what do they call it in your dining room you have like a shelf, what do they call it that you want, hold on Aaron, that you have things on. It's customary. Some people will put on maybe not a full tablecloth, but a kind of a covering to show that it's a special day. You should cover all tables in the room in which you will eat, even if you will not eat at all the tables. If not eating at all the tables, nevertheless, cover them. And possibly you should cover all the tables in your house in general, not even the tables that you're eating on, any kind of countertop. That's not obviously, you're not going to put in your kitchen a tablecloth where you need to cut the food. But if you have like closets or china, people have where you have the svarim or something in your room, in the dining room, you should put it to try to cover with something. Yeah, Aaron, you wanted to ask something?
No, oh, yeah, just you were breaking up. I had to reset my phone. So could you just repeat a few things back?
Hold on. Barbara, are you also not hearing me clear?
I do now hear you.
I just don't know if it was my. No, we were just talking about the laws of getting ready for Shabbos, and we just said about covering the tables, that all the tables should be covered with tablecloths, not even, he quotes the Pri Megadim, not only if you have not the one you eat on, and you should leave it covered at all times.
Wait,
Okay.
what does that mean? You should put a new tablecloth on, or you should leave your table only on Shabbos. You have to have a tablecloth.
Yeah, during the week there's no obligation to have tablecloths. Tablecloths is something we would have on during the week. Unless you eat, if you want to put a tablecloth, obviously. But on Shabbos, at all times on Shabbos, you should have
What's the reasoning?
as an honor. So
Okay.
it's a way of showing respect. And the Pri Megadim quotes that not just the table, but all tables in your house, not just when you're eating on.
What were you asking me, Rabbi?
No, I just want to know if the feed you're getting, is that clear? You're getting my feed?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just let me clear this up. So even if I have a table on for Shabbos that I study at, even my stender.
Yeah, you could have something. Again, a lot of people have, I don't know what it's called in English. A lot of people have like these like a kind of net. Like not a net, it's like a little white piece of made out of a kind of linen. That's not a full tablecloth. That they would put on like on dining room countertops, where you have, let's say, the Shabbos candles. But you definitely, if you have a television in the room, you cover it. It's not Shabbosdik. You want to make the house Shabbosdik. So if you had a stender, it would be nice if you had something on it that would kind of symbolize of honor of Shabbos. If you go into shuls, a lot of shuls will put tablecloths on the tables on Shabbos, and during the week they don't have them. So you go into a shul, they have tablecloths on all the tables. That's the custom. Okay, he says there's other custom people who put on two tablecloths as a way of doubling the respect. And then he talks about the pashtida, the kind of pie that was made in honor, that some people make in honor of Shabbos, like a meat pie or what have you. So in this case, the dough is on top, and the dough is on top and the bottom of the meat. So if you're talking about the Be'er Halacha says that it's customary. Some people have the custom to make like a meat pie that has the dough on the top, like and dough on the bottom that has inside the meat that's like the man. Okay. Now he's going to go into the laws of the obligations we have to what extent we have to go out, so to say, financially on our responsibility to make a nice Shabbos. So he says, "Afilu ani sheb'Yisrael," even if you are a person who's considered what the Torah would call an ani. An ani is a poor person. So is doreis v'yisiameitz la'anix Shabbos. So you should make every effort and energy to take joy in the Shabbos, to make Shabbos a special day. You shouldn't say, well, if I had more, then I would do nicer, but I don't have, so I'm just going to make it like a regular day. V'yitzamtzem, more than that. So now he adds, you should minimize, the word tzimtzum, minimize, b'chol hashavua, throughout the week, kedei, in order sheyeh ma'aseh chvay the Shabbos. So if you have limited funds, if you can, not in a way that's unhealthy or extreme, but if you could save a little bit throughout the week and minimize even what you're going to splurge on during the week, so you should have a nicer Shabbos. And if you have no money, so he says here, Yilva afilu al mashkanoi l'tzarchei Shabbos. We'll go into the details soon in the footnotes, but you should borrow against collateral. Mashkanos means if you have something to give over for Shabbos, so you could have and then pay it up. And he quotes, this is what our rabbis mean when they say, Banai, my children, God's talking to the Jewish people, Levu alai, loan, take a loan on me. God will help you, pay it back. Vani pere, I will pay it back. But make a beautiful Shabbos. And it says, and the rabbis teach us, all the foods a person has assigned for them, that God assigns for each person an amount of food they're going to have throughout the year on Rosh Hashanah. When it's the Day of Judgment, there's an amount that is Ketsuvim Leim Rosh Hashanah. The Torah tells us nothing is by chance. Whatever you eat throughout the year is because God decided so on Rosh Hashanah in the new year. So it's already been decided. That's all the food throughout the year. Chutz me'haitzais Shabbos v'Yom Tov. Shabbos and Yom Tov is not included. That's extra. It means to say is if God says, hypothetically, you have 5 pounds of meat to eat a year, and you can eat 5 pounds the first month, you may not have meat the rest of the year. But that doesn't include Shabbos. Shabbos is beyond those limitations. If you're going to add on Shabbos more than what's been allocated to you, even though we don't know exactly how much God has decided for us, obviously. But if you just say, I'm going in for Shabbos, I'll put my car in the shop and take a loan to make Shabbos, love alai, God says it's on me. Then God adds for not just that God adds what you're going to have, what you spend on Shabbos, but you can have more throughout the year. Okay, that's talking about a person who could maneuver their finances in such a way that they could figure out how to take a loan or what have you for Shabbos. However, if things are really difficult, then we have another statement from the rabbis that says, means if you could figure out with your own resources to get a loan, to figure things out, to cut down your expenses throughout the week, to make Shabbos nicer, all that, you should try to maneuver the best you can. But if you're going to have to go to Tzarech Labris, you're going to have to go and take donations in order to make a nice Shabbos. So it says, the rabbis say, better make a weekday. A simple Shabbos means make your Shabbos chol weekly, then don't come on to others in a way that's beyond, where they have to actually give you money to make Shabbos, as opposed to taking a loan and what have you. Now, I just want to say that's God's talking to the poor person, the person who is the giver. You can't go to someone who says to you and says, could you please help me make Shabbos? I'm trying raising funds so I can make Shabbos. So we say, well, the Shulchan Aruch says you could have, peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but don't go to people. That's the person maybe the person shouldn't be asking, possibly. But today it's accepted that there's tamchois, there's people, we give money always for help people to make Shabbos. We come nevertheless, but if you can, is Yirak Apanim Lasis the Shabbos Muad. Even if you can't do something beautiful and huge, do something additional, small, even. You're going Dagum Katanu Kadema, even thinking about a small amount of fish, right? So if you have to just eat a tuna fish, but tuna fish sandwich, but it's tuna, it's fish. Is Misha Shalchalai Ezadav Lachal B'Shabbos, and also if someone sends you something to eat on Shabbos, Yesh Lachal B'Shabbos V'lei Lashir Lachal. You should eat it on Shabbos and don't leave it over for the week. I remember, I think I told the story that I was once in walking in the street and someone asked me, I need money to make Shabbos, and I didn't, so I had with me an extra piece of fish. I didn't even know why I bought an extra piece of salmon. So I bought it. I was on the way home and I said, here, take a piece, take salmon. So he told me, oh, thank you. He said, but if I could ask you permission to put it in the freezer for a weekday supper as opposed to using it on Shabbos. So even though it says here you should use it on Shabbos, but that person asked special permission. I said, of course, that you can use it anytime as it works in your schedule. Okay, so we're going to go through. Yes, Aaron.
So what's this about fish? You should make sure everyone, or is it just the tradition of Minhag?
About fish?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's clearly that in the previous sif, in the previous law, when he says that a person should try to have meat, fish, and wine for Shabbos, then he adds the mitzvah specifically is fish. I mean, to say fish is more. It seems clearly that fish is more of an importance than the basar and dagim, than the meat. Even though basar ain't simcha basar. When we eat meat, we're happy, and we of course you have wine, we're happy. But the idea is to take joy in Shabbos. The fish is kind of an elevation. I'm sure there's many mystical reasons. The fish never sinned in the time of the flood. There's the fish weren't the animals did sin. The fish didn't sin. Since the fish are it says tzaddikim are like fish. So there's something more spiritual about fish. It's a more delicate meat than chicken. So dagim in general is considered more lofty than animals. So there's kind of on Shabbos we're more lofty, so we should eat something of more of a holier food.
But on one day, Friday, or both days, Friday and Saturday?
No. We should eat fish every meal. Every meal. And even the custom is that, for instance, less if people eat the third meal. Very few people will eat. Maybe in the summer it's different, but especially in the winter, people not having chicken in the third meal usually. I'm not saying anything's wrong with that, but people are careful to have fish. So
because on the third meal, when we're doing Sal Shudas, our shul doesn't always put out fish.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just saying it depends on what the shul decides they can afford. But it's customary to try to have. I mean, this in Chabad, we don't even wash. We have fruit. You could have fruit the third meals. It's not as important. It's not as strict as the first two meals. But the custom is, if you can, to have fish all three meals. And also malav and malka, even on the meal after Shabbos, we have fish as well. He says something of value to guarantee the loan. If you have a mashkin, so you should give something of value for to get a loan so you can make a Shabbos. Okay, and then he says over here. He says over make Shabbos simple rather than depend on people. So he quotes the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah says that if one only has enough for two meals, he need not borrow for the third Shabbos meal. It means if you have enough to make two meals for Shabbos, and you say, well, I can't make the third meal. I can't even afford to make anything on the third meal. You don't need to borrow money to make the third meal. He need not borrow for the third Shabbos meal. If he has money for three meals, he should use it all for Shabbos. Make sure you use all the meals for Shabbos, not to say, well, the halacha says that if I don't have money for three meals, I could use two meals, and maybe I'll just put away the third meal for money for another time. No, if you have the money, make three meals. But if you don't have the money, you have to borrow for three meals. Okay, he goes into, this is the Jewish age-old question of leftovers, right? Everyone has, Baruch Hashem, it's very hard to make Shabbos in such a way that you have zero leftovers. A big success is if you're able to feed everyone, if you have guests, Baruch Hashem, or you have a large table with people, and of course you give them enough food, everyone has enough food, and you're able to figure out exactly how much without leftovers is usually a very rare success. So either you're going to have too little food, unfortunately, or you may have leftovers. So what do you do with the leftovers? It says your family should eat it on Shabbos. Everyone should try to eat the leftovers and not eat it on the week. If something is left over, you should save it for the following Shabbos. Means if you have something that can be put away, if it is perishable, you should eat it even during the week rather than let it go to waste. So here we learned something important about Shabbos food. The number one is try to eat all the food on Shabbos. If it's non-perishable foods, whatever that would be, each person knows themselves. Obviously, not expected to take chicken and leave it for a week or fish and leave it for a week. But if you could refreeze something, you're not allowed to freeze on Shabbos for the next week. But if you could refreeze something, or if it's just crackers, what have you, herring, things that last in a bottle, a jar, or a cupboard, so then put it away for the next Shabbos, not just to eat it stam during the week. However, if it's leftovers that needs to be eaten in the next day or two, so don't throw it out. Leftovers is something one should try to eat on Shabbos. Again, it's a sign of respect for Shabbos food. Okay, now we're going to go into the question about preparing the laws of preparing how we prepare ourselves for Shabbos, work-wise, etc. on Friday. Again, this is Eretz Yisrael. One of the things about Eretz Yisrael is Eretz Yisrael Friday is not a working day. If you're a company person who works in Eretz Yisrael, obviously if you're a shop owner or something else, but most companies are closed on Friday. So it helps a person prepare for Shabbos. But what about if you live in the United States or outside of Eretz Yisrael and Friday is a working day? It's not easy. It says, Ein lasis melacha b'derech keva b'erev Shabbos. Preferably, one should not do what does he say? Regular work. Regular work on Erev Shabbos. From what time is that? From Mincha Ketana. What is Mincha Ketana? Ulamaila. Mincha Ketana is, like he says over here, he says he doesn't go into this matter. Mincha Ketana is, we have Mincha Gedola, Mincha Ketana. Mincha Ketana is, the Mincha Gedola is, let's say, 30 minutes after Chatzos, after midday, when we could start davening Mincha. So it's Gedola, you have the main time that you could daven Mincha. And then it's preferably to do Mincha Ketana is this last 2.5 Zmanim hours before sunset. Is Mincha Ketana is the small section of hold on, Aaron, is a small time of Mincha. So from Mincha Ketana, from let's say 2.5 hours, it's again, we have to remember the hours are not 60 minutes, but it's basically 12 periods of time of daylight. So the winter has shorter hours and the summer has longer hours. So from 2.5 hours before, about 2.5 hours before sunset is when people should stop doing regular work. Yes, Aaron.
I'm trying to take notes. You went a little too fast for me to write it all down.
Okay, sure.
What time? So just repeat it slowly so I can get it on in my book.
So hold on a second. I'm gonna share with you something. I'm not sure if I could share a second page. Let's see. Hold on. Let me see. Okay, hold on. I'm going to show you the Zmanim here. Okay. I think it's the same page. Hold on. It's going to be it's another thing. Hold on. Mincha Gedola. What's the difference between Mincha Gedola and Mincha Ketana? They say like this, the answer. The time to daven Mincha is from half hour after Chatzos, midday. That's when you start daven Mincha, and sunset. That's Mincha Gedola. That's the main time, which is
so
5
before, half hour before or half hour after midnight?
Half hour after, but not afternoon. It's not 12 o'clock.
I know that.
It's halachic hours. So again, it's daylight hours. So after halfway through daylight hours is 5.5 hours. It's 5.5 hours of time. This is called Mincha Gedola. This is called the big Mincha. Okay. Why is it 5.5 hours? Because the first 6 hours of the day are before Chatzos, and then you have to wait a half hour. So you have 5.5 hours left. So 5.5 hours left is Mincha Gedola, the large Mincha. Mincha Katana is the last 2.5 hours before sunset. So again, if you have to go online to check how many minutes per hour. Easy today online. You just go online and check. Zmanim will tell you what time Mincha Katana is. But if you wanted to know the calculation, you have to see how many minutes in the winter, how many minutes in the summer. So the last 2.5 hours of let's say whatever the time is of the day, whatever its season is, winter or summer, and depending also which side of the equator you are, is Mincha Katana. And then Plaga Mincha is half of that. So Plaga Mincha is, we'll see what Plaga Mincha comes up as half of the small Mincha. So that's an hour and a quarter before sunset. Okay, let's go back to the laws. So it says over here, so 2.5 hours before, I don't know, let's say hypothetically it's 40 minutes an hour in the winter, 40 of our minutes, of regular minutes. So we're talking about 100 minutes before sunset is one should stop doing regular work if you can. But not set work. So then he says mutter is allowed. That means not regular. Means something small is okay. If it's something you need to do for Shabbos itself, so then even after Mincha Katana, which is 2.5 hours before sunset, is permissible. Last is big day chaveri b'sachar. What about if you're a tailor or cleaners, whatever, to help someone else prepare for Shabbos? For pay is also prohibited. What about if you need the money? You're going to help someone prepare for Shabbos, right? You're going to clean someone else's clothing because the money you'll be paid will help you make Shabbos. Then then you're allowed to do whatever labor you need to do throughout the day. Just like these are the same laws of Chol HaMoed. So he's saying that Chol HaMoed, which is the week holiday weekdays, be in between the holidays like Sukkot and Pesach, right? Between the first days and the second days, it's called Chol HaMoed. So those days are also one should not work. The same way you're permissible to work to make the holiday, then you're allowed to work to make the Shabbos. Okay. L'saper es Yisrael. What about to give a haircut?
Oh,
Hold on. Yeah, yes, Aaron.
I'm just going to ask that question.
Okay. So what about L'saper es Yisrael, to give a haircut to another Jew? Mutter kol hayom. You're allowed to throughout the day. Afilu ma'isa umon, even if you're not just a casual, in the yeshiva using the machine, but you're actually a professional hairdresser. Afilu b'sachar, even if you're going to take pay. Why? Unlike cleaning the clothing or preparing, he doesn't say cleaning, preparing the clothing, it's clear that the haircut that you're doing on Friday is for Shabbos, so it's not a way of disrespecting Shabbos. So this is all a part of preparing and respecting for Shabbos. It's just like you're showing your anticipation for Shabbos, not just quickly turning off the computer and running to Shabbos. You should prepare for Shabbos. Yes, Barbara.
Yeah, I just had a quick question because a friend of mine sent me the 39 laws of Shabbos, and one of them was there no combing. Now, does that refer to combing hair, or is that something else?
Cutting here for sure you're allowed to. If you're allowed to cut here, you're sure allowed to comb here. It's not a question of prohibited because of the laws of Shabbos. It's a way of resting before the Shabbos. It means what the Shulchan Aruch is saying is basically what you shouldn't run into Shabbos like last minute. Prepare, just like you go in calmly to Shabbos. So you should go in, have everything organized in the morning. So by this last 2.5 hours of Plaga Mincha, you shouldn't have to do heavy work. You shouldn't be taking pay for it. Again, so you should start taking in Shabbos, unless the pay is required for you to make Shabbos. And in the case of a haircut, which is even more, hair cutting, the whole problem of combing here is you may pull out here, right? So you may pull out here when you comb the hair. So cutting here is obviously is prohibited. Combing here is shvus, is something that we're concerned by combing the hair. You're going to pull out here, but you're allowed to definitely comb here on Erev Shabbos. You even allowed to cut here for someone, even for pay, because that clearly the person is doing it on Friday. So that person, he or she, should go into Shabbos looking groomed. Okay.
Well, what about on Shabbos itself? Can you still comb your hair on Shabbos?
So that's what she's saying, is that we don't comb our hair on Shabbos. We don't comb our hair on Shabbos because of the concern that by combing the hair, you're going to pull out some of the hair.
Okay.
Now it says yesh lahaskar. That's you're a store owner. Okay, and people also need you for what you provide for Shabbos, right? Everyone in Eretz Yisrael, again, if you're in America, you can always run to the kosher Jewish shops that are open on a Friday. But if you live in Eretz Yisrael, the stress is also you have to make sure everyone closes their stores on Shabbos. Most people. When do you have to close the store? That's Shabbos. That's an hour before Shabbos. It means less. You have more time to keep the shop open because people may need things. All right, let's see the footnotes. Mincha Ketana. So he says Mincha Ketana. We'll talk about it, or they spoke about it already, and we're in chapter 72. This is chapter 69. Okay, but we went over that. That's the last 2.5 hours of Shazmanis. Okay, so he says like this. So it says, and thereafter, but on a provisional basis, is even for pay. So even outright, something, I remember once when we first got married, we lived in Eretz Yisrael. So America, I don't know if it's hold on, Aaron. That we lived in Eretz Yisrael, and our lights went out Erev Shabbos. We couldn't. The switch wouldn't work. We didn't know what. We had a lot of guests. The switch wasn't working. So we called the electrician. We told him the problem. He asked me to describe this before. We couldn't take pictures, but I told him it was in the 90s. I told him what was wrong with I described the light switch and all. So he came in mamish 10 minutes before Shabbos. I was getting so nervous because we had guests and the room would be dark. And he knew what the problem was. Basically, there was a little fuse in the switch, in the turning thing, that just needed to be replaced. But I remember he came running in. It was already something quick. He took it out, switched the fuse, gave me a bill for 180 shekel, $50, and ran back home. So something alright, something quick, even for pay, you're allowed to do. Yes, Aaron.
If you work at a store and they close 1 hour before, how do you do no hard work 2.5 hours before? How do you respect that rule?
No, so that's what he's saying. If you're a store owner, it's different because your shop is part of people's needing. How many people forget things? Realize last minute that they're out of this or out of that. So if everyone's going to close the shop early, it's a special responsibility, an opportunity for the shop owners to stay open longer. So those people who are running late or what have you should have what they need for Shabbos. So that's an exception to the rule. The shop owners. So he says over here, what's something that's not permanent is like writing a letter, the Ramah says. Okay. 56, he says like this. It's permitted even so that if it's permitted, it says it's permitted even after it's forbidden to make clothes for someone for money on Erev Shabbos after Plaga Mincha. If the customer will deduct from the payment, or if you will lose the customer in the future unless you finish the work now, right? Let's say someone comes in and says, listen, I need my clothing for Shabbos. You're telling me that, but I need my clothing now. You're telling me that you're not going to finish your job because you're closing early on Shabbos, then I'm paying you less. Or you lost me as a customer. I'm not coming back to your shop again. So what about in such a case? So you may finish it even after Mincha Ketana, even after Mincha Ketana, even after 2.5 hours. If your business is at risk, you're allowed to. However, you should try to avoid such situations, the Be'er Halacha says. So don't put yourself in such a situation, but if you're in an extreme situation that it comes, and a lot of people obviously will rely on this ruling of the Be'er Halacha to apply it to other situations where you say, I'll get fired from my job if I don't work until at least 3 o'clock on Friday, even though I have only an hour left of Shabbos, and that's not enough time. Okay, so he says over here that Chol HaMoed, giving a haircut is permissible. So he says this passage is not found in most editions of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. I'm not sure what he's referring to, but he says that some people that are part of on Friday, that haircut, that edition is not added in others. I'm not going to go into why. He says over here, last thing is, okay, just quotes the sources. Okay, now, up until what point can you eat on Friday? Because again, not eating on Friday is about going in with a healthy appetite, to Shabbos. Again, everything has exceptions to the rules. If you take Shabbos in early, or if for every reason you have to take in Shabbos on time, and it's late in the summer, it doesn't mean you have to starve and be starving, but you should try to go in with an appetite to Shabbos. So he says, what is the system? So the idea like this: from 9 hours and above, mitzvah lihimana misuda, one should avoid a meal. Now we just said before that mincha ketana starts 5.5 hours before, and chatzos is 6 hours before. So teisha shayos would be really after breakfast. So you should not have a suda, a proper full meal. Hold on, Aaron. I feel mashu raga b'chol, even what you're accustomed to in the week. So let's say in the week you would have a full meal for lunch. So 9 hours. 9 hours is definitely 3 hours before midday. So you should not have a full meal. Yes, Aaron.
The rabbi in my shul said a full meal, and I'm just questioning you. Is just a custom or what? But a full meal is with bread. So if you ate a plate of fruit, that's not a full meal.
Not 100%. No, Suda
Okay.
isn't. Now, again, even bread, we should try not to wash. But if there's extreme circumstances, but regularly, yes. I feel much rugged, even if even though let's say you have a sandwich every day at lunchtime, so you should not have that sandwich on Friday. Usuda sheini rugged b'chol. I feel usudas mitzvah. What about a non-regular meal, like a special event? Even if it's a mitzvah, like we'll see in a second. Let's say you want to make a siyum, right? If you could push off the siyum for another day, means it's not time dependent. Then you shouldn't do it at all. Means if you want to make a celebration, don't do it on Friday. Don't even make a big breakfast on Friday. Something unique. Or a siyum, a big party on Friday. I feel about biker even in the morning. But what about certain things that you can't push off? For instance, the meal of a circumcision, milah, or pidyon haben, of the redemption of the firstborn, that you have to do 30 days or 8 days after the baby's born. You can't push it off the next day, or etc. For instance, you don't have to do a bar mitzvah. You don't have to do a bar mitzvah Friday in the morning. You could do the bar mitzvah on Sunday, the meal. So then it's mutter. I'm not going to say wedding, because some people have the custom to get married on Friday. There is such a concept to get married on Friday. So, and then they would go into Shabbos. The reason they would get married on Friday, we spoke about this, was because people couldn't afford a Shabbos meal, so they kind of double down. But here it clearly says that preferably one should not make even a Sudas mitzvah on Friday unless it's time sensitive. Even a Sudas mitzvah, bris, you shouldn't do the bris later on in the day, again, unless you have to. Sometimes the moil is waiting for the baby to become ready. So you shouldn't do it, you should do it in the morning. And he says, lo yarba boy, don't make it huge, because it's Friday. And surely a person should not eat a very huge gasa, means like kind of engorged meal. This is all about eating Shabbos with an appetite. Let's go to the footnotes. For instance, can you make a big barbecue? If Aaron, there's no meat in a barbecue necessarily, but don't do that on a Friday. Okay, so he says, on short Fridays is a mitzvah to abstain even earlier if it will spoil your appetite. He adds, the Mishnah Brewer says that even though it says 9 hours, again, 9 hours means the first 3 hours of the day light. Let's say the daylight in the winter starts at 7 o'clock. In Seattle, it's later. In New York, maybe it's earlier. Let's say 7 o'clock is day hours, and you have 40 minutes in the meal in the day. So 9 hours is really the first 120 minutes of regular time is by 9 o'clock. You should stop having, by 9 o'clock you should have already eaten your breakfast. So he says on the short Shabbos, the Mishnah Berurah says you should even abstain more than 9 hours, because it's a short Shabbos and you're going to be eating, at 5 o'clock, in the evening, the meal. So he says it's a mitzvah. He quotes the source, and then let's see, 63. He says to refer, even it's a mitzvah even once in a lifetime. Okay. To refrain from eating a regular meal, even the kind you regularly eat during the week. I'm not sure what he means, even once in a lifetime. I'm not sure what that means. Okay, 64. He says a siyum. Oh, he gives an example. What is the like? So he says like this: a siyum mesechta is also included. Oh, the beer halacha disagrees with what I said. That a siyum, if you finish a tractate of Talmud and you want to make a meal, that is permitted to do on Friday. I thought a siyum you could push off, and he says no. The Be'er Halacha says a siyum is something that you also should you can do on Friday. Okay, let's see. We do one more law. Actually, this is we'll do one more law and then we'll open to questions and end the class. So like this, Chayiv kol adam lahashlim parshas imatibur. This Aaron mentioned. It's important that one finishes the parsha of the week with the congregation. The Hainu, what does it mean to finish? Sheyikra kol shavua parshas hashavua shnayim mikra ve'echad targum. Throughout the week, you should read the whole parsha twice, shnayim twice, and one time the translation, the targum, which is the unkelos, the Aramaic version on the Chumash. When should you start? Sunday. Because the community already started the new parsha of Shabbos afternoon by Mincha. So you're ready, the community is with you, means don't go ahead. Even though the law is, it's not brought down here, that if you miss weeks, you should make up for it before Simchas Torah. But preferably be on schedule. Don't wait a few weeks and then just 1 week quickly read a whole bunch of parshas. Each week, do that week. So what does it mean that week? Starting from Sunday. So theoretically, and that's what Aaron was suggesting, that he sent the beautiful link of communities that do together from Sunday each portion of the week. But the mitzvah min hamufcha, it's preferable to read it from Shabbos afternoon, after Chatzos, which is midday, again 6 hours. V'yesh likrois kol parsha, dainu pesucha oisnuma, shnei pa'am, you should read each portion, whether it's an open portion or closed, 2 times, and then you read the translation, the unkelos. So he says the Vilna Gaon. We're going to see in a second, the footnotes is that our custom is to do verse by verse. There is very few times, but there are times that a parsha means a section of the Torah completes the middle of a verse. You should stop at the end of that parsha, even if it's mid-verse. Yafsik sham, and then read the second time, and then read the Targum. Ubegemar, and when you finish, the custom is by some people, Chabad, it's clearly the Chabad does not have that custom, that after you finish the entire reading, so you've said the Torah, then you said the Targum. The Targum is the unkelos, the Aramaic version. And then you said the Torah, and then you said the Targum. And then the final verse, you say 2 times the final verse, you say the Targum, and then you say again the verse, so you should finish off with the original text as opposed to the transliterary text. However, Chabad does not have that minhag. I saw clearly the Rebbe mentions that. So you should finish off a verse, you should finish off with the original text. And this is also, it's not easier said than done. While you're doing it, you should not speak. The custom is, and the Rebbe mentioned this many times, to also prepare the Haftorah, which is the part we read from the Navi that we read afterwards. There's those who have the custom to say Song of Songs on Friday as well. That's a big custom, a big idea. What would you do if, let's say, you only have the original text and you cannot read the Targum unkelos? Okay, the Targum is almost 90% of the Chumashim. There was a convert from the Roman aristocratic family. He was a descendant of the Caesars. His name was Unkelos the Ger. He translated the Chumash into those days what was the English or the Latin of those days. It was Targum. It was Aramaic, and that's the Aramaic translation for those who understood Aramaic better than they understood the Hebrew, the Lashon HaKodesh. So we should read it with the translation. The idea is to understand the text. So Yikra Shteipa Mikra. So then you should read just the Chumash if you don't have the Targum with you. You don't have the translation. When you get eventually somewhere else, read the whole Targum, the whole unkelos. Now he adds that not only should you read the translation of the unkelos on the Chumash, also every God-fearing person should read Rashi on the Sedra. Chabad's custom is, of course, where we do Chumash and Rashi every day. Sunday Chumash and Rashi in the first portion, Monday is the second portion, etc. Vimlav bar hachihu. And let's say you're not able to, Rashi is too difficult. So Yilmad Perish Ashkenazi, you should learn a German. Ashkenazi means today would be English. If you live in America, in an English-speaking country, learn at least the English, the loyaz, the local language, so you understand the Chumash before the Parsha reading. Ala Sidra on the Parsha, Kegoin, Sefer, Tzener, or there's other books, for instance, that are in Yiddish, like Tzener, Re'ena, Akademish, Yavin, Inna Sidra, so you stand, you should go into Shabbos ideas, go into Shabbos with knowledge of the Parsha. All right, let's read the commentaries on this. Chapter of the Torah. Okay, quotes the sources. 67. The Ber Hativ says that one should try, it's better to read it in the afternoon. The Shari Tshuva maintains, another commentary, that the Arizal HaKadosh, the Holy Ari, would read it not in the afternoon, but in the morning. So the Arizal, which is the Kabbalistic opinion, said not to read it on Friday, but in the morning before half day, not after half day. He also says the perfect way is to finish Erev Shabbos. The Mishnah Berurah says we should finish on Friday. The Vilna Gaon read a portion every morning and finished Erev Shabbos. So the Vilna Gaon did it every morning, a portion, and finished it on Friday, in accordance with the Beis Yosef and the Rambam. That's like he brings down the original text that one should do from Sunday. So the Vilna Gaon did it on Sunday, Monday, finishing on Erev Shabbos, and the Mishnah Berurah says preferably either way, try to make sure you finish it on Erev Shabbos. Before Shabbos, you should have completed already the preparing of the Chumash. You read 2 times each portion, and then read the Targum. That is the Vilna Gaon quotes that. The Magen Avram quotes, many poskim, many authorities hold, who maintain that you should read it verse by verse as opposed to parsha by parsha. Let me just explain. When we say the parsha of the week, we mean the section. Let's say this week is Miketz, last week was Vayeshev. That's the entire portion that we read on Shabbos by the shul. When the Torah in Halacha, when it says parsha, it doesn't mean that. Parsha means the sections of the Torah. If you look in the Torah has sections, not broken up by chapters and not broken up by verses, broken up by parshas. The parsha is the section. The Vilna Gaon would read a section, and you could see there's a little pei or a samach symbol to show when we finish that section. The Vilna Gaon would read it section by section in Hebrew, and then a section in the Targum, in the Onkelos. 1 second. The Magen Avram quotes many rulings to not read it section by section, but verse by verse, which is the custom that most of us do today. Aaron, I'm going to get to your question in a second. I just want to finish the commentaries here. Put a note on that. This is important. He says Arizal says it's a grave sin to talk during the Shnai Mikra. Okay, you have to be more careful on that. We should also do the Haftorah. What about if if a Targum or Rashi's commentary is not available, you should read the Parsha 3 times. The Pri Megadim says if you have no way to read the Targum, the Onkelos, then just read the original text 3 times. You should also read Rashi. Shulchan Aruch says this also includes the Targum. Means you should do the Targum and Rashi. Okay, he says that so you study the commentary in Yiddish. The same holds true in English or any language that you understand. Okay, and this section of the brackets is not found in many editions about the idea of Tzener Re'ena. Okay, Aaron, you wanted to ask something, and then
the breakup that you were saying.
Yeah.
Is that the same as they break it up when they call each person to the Torah?
No. So let me explain. The Torah has divisions of the part, what's called the Sedra of the week. Then the Torah has Parakim. According to a lot of opinions, the question is who broke it up. This Parakim is chapters, right? Chapter 21, chapter 22. Then you have verses. Then you have sections. The sections could carry in. The sections are their own thing, their own space of the text. You could see the sections, and if you look in the original Chumash, you'll see it when there's separation that separates the parshas, and when there's other times there'll be a samach. Sometimes it's sag or it's closed, but we have signs in the Chumash itself. If you start paying attention, you'll see at the end of a certain verse, it could be 2 verses, it could be 10 verses, it could be 20 verses. You'll see a little pei or samach that tells you that in the actual scroll it'll be sagur or pasuach, but this ends the chapter. This ends the section. And that's so the Vilna Gaon would read section by section. Yes, Barbara.
Yeah, what I do is there's a daily study on Chabad.org, and that's what I do every day, Sunday through Thursday, is read it, and it's got Rashi with it.
Mhm.
And so but when it's talking about reading it twice, it's not talking about reading the whole parsha twice, is it? It's just talking.
So what you're doing is very good. That's chitas. That's what Chabad does. Is Chumash Rashi every day. This is something separate. It's called Shnai Mikrecha Targum. Is to read literally. What people do is they'll sit down an hour in the afternoon or in the morning, like the Rizal. Today is the custom. He says the Gra did it from the beginning to read original text twice. Means the original text as it is in the Chumash, and then the Targum, the translation of the Onkelos. Today, most people understand the original text and they understand the Targum. But back in the day, the Targum was the language, the English of the time, or the Latin of the time. So people understood Aramaic. That helped them understand better, have a better understanding of the parsha of the Sedra, it's called the Sedra, before they went into the Shabbos. But this is something specifically to read 2 times the original text and then to read the Targum. What learning Chumash and Rashi is also good. He mentions at the end that it's customary also to learn Chumash and Rashi. But this is something unique, about how, and also how you do it. We don't talk in between. He says it's better not to talk. The Arizal says it's a grave sin. But the idea of Shtay Mikra Targum, that's something most people do on a Friday. If you have it, you try to make an hour, take an hour, half hour of it, how long it takes you. Again, if reading Hebrew is really difficult and that will take you hours and hours, you could, of course, break it up to read the original text twice and then the Targum day by day. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, you would read each section.
I just read it in English.
I'd have to read it in English too. But what I'm understanding is we should also be reading the Haftorah as well.
Yes.
We should read. Okay,
yes.
that I wasn't aware of. Okay, so we should be reading that.
We prepare that as well. I'll so much so, finish off with this, that it says that that once the Rebbe Rashab, the 5th Rebbe Chabad, was, I guess he was praying in a shul or at a minyan that, maybe they just, it wasn't his regular minyan, what have you, and they just gave him maftir. They gave him the Haftorah. And he because for whatever reason he hadn't prepared it yet, he went out, prepared it, and then came and said it. And like the Rebbe says, not because he had a problem reading Hebrew or he was put on the spot, but because you have to prepare it before you say it.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Shabbat Shalom. For those who we don't see for the next class, and happy Hanukkah.
Happy
Shabbat
Hanukkah.
Shalom. Are we having class tomorrow night?
Yes, we have a class in the Rebbe Sichos tomorrow night.